Ricky, the first week of practice into now the second week of practice, except for maybe Tuesday was the first breakout day the offense really shined. The Eagles defense has been better than the Eagles offense in preseason, which most Eagle fans, or at least the pessimistic ones, look at as Jalen Hurts isn't good enough. Our offense isn't going to be good enough. Sirianni should be calling the plays rather than Shane Steichen. People are looking for reasons to beat up on the Eagle offense. Instead, I look at it as a positive for the Eagles defense. I think they've upgraded the talents on the defense this year. Last year, you'll remember, they struggled early. Thanks for streaming on in on Birds 365 Thursday edition. Ric Serritella in for Johnny Mac. Johnny just headed on in to get a chance to talk to Coach Sirianni. A little time with the coaches prior to a full workout session for the Eagles today. They're trying to get it underway earlier than usual because it's supposed to be a hot one down in South Philadelphia today. Hot one throughout the entire Delaware Valley, but specifically if the Eagles have the pads on, yeah, it'll be pretty hot for them, which, oh, by the way, John's just a nicer guy than I am. That's a foregone conclusion. And he's got to deal with the Eagles. I just sit here and talk about them on our stream. There is, hold on, 0% chance the Eagles go 90 minutes today. Two reasons why. Number one, it's going to be hot. So I think most teams in the NFL, if not all, who were practicing in the same conditions the Eagles are going to be practicing in today with the heat would cut it a little bit short. Number two, the Eagles have cut everything short. So you add those two things together, there is 0 chance they're doing the full 90 minutes today. So while McMullen will be suffering out in the heat when he's there, he's going to get out early. They're not doing 90 minutes. I'll bet very good money on that. Rick, we talk about the Eagles here more than anything else, but you covered the entire National Football League. This is standard operating procedure. We're talking about degrees here, and I'm not talking 90 to 100. I'm talking degrees and how things are done. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Are they really keeping players safe? Are they preventing injuries? Are we just looking at a sloppier opening couple weeks of the season because of an overt leading toward precaution with player safety?
Yes and no. I mean, it's hard to knock the medical aspect of it. And we mentioned Corey Stringer in that first segment. I mean, I guess there's probably a big percentage of our audience, Jody, that might not even been alive when that happened or know what happened. But Corey Stringer was an offensive lineman for the Vikings, 350 pounds. Back in the day, you didn't get water breaks. And so he collapsed on the field and later died because of dehydration. And what Johnny Mac was saying is so true. I mean, I hate to say it. When I was playing, we had 2 a day, sometimes 3 a days. And if you went over to get a sip of water from that hose, you were scared to do it because you might get benched. You might get called out. You might get put to a backup role. And that's the way that football used to be played. It's a whole different era. Now, to me, when it comes to tackling, you got to practice or you don't know how. And that's why you get this sloppy tackling, especially at the beginning of the season. So I agree. I mean, look, everybody's going to be looking for the exit door today. It's the dog days of August. But in terms of keeping guys safe, I think when you are scared to hit and you don't go all out, I think you can get injured that way too. So to me, if it was me, I'd be tackling, I'd be hitting. Fundamentals of football is really what separates a good team from a great team. So I guess to answer your question, a little bit of yes, a little bit of no.
Ricky, the first week of practice into now the second week of practice, except for maybe Tuesday was the first breakout day the offense really shined. The Eagles defense has been better than the Eagles offense in preseason, which most Eagle fans, or at least the pessimistic ones, look at as Jalen Hurts isn't good enough. Our offense isn't going to be good enough. Sirianni should be calling the plays rather than Shane Steichen. People are looking for reasons to beat up on the Eagle offense. Instead, I look at it as a positive for the Eagles defense. I think they've upgraded the talents on the defense this year. Last year, you'll remember, they struggled early. Perhaps that had something to do with Eric Wilson and Singleton playing linebacker rather than TJ Edwards. When they kind of made TJ the man at linebacker, the Eagles got better. The defense got better. They've added a James Bradbury, who's a major upgrade at cornerback. I think Marcus Epps can outdo what either of the two. If Harris is Harris, then I think he can outdo what they had at the other safety position last year. They add Hassan Reddick, so yes, they may actually have a pass rush this year, someone for the outside who can get double-digit sacks. And you throw Jordan Davis into that middle of the defensive line, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. How much better is Eagle defense going to be this year, Serritella?
I mean, that sounds like a significant upgrade to me. All three levels of the defense. I mean, up front, Jordan Davis, it might not show up in the stat box, but what this guy is going to do, he's going to eat space. He's going to absorb bodies. He's going to allow guys on the exterior to run around because he's going to be clogging up the interior. And I think he's headed for 50% snap count, especially a big bulk on first and second down. And that's going to open up lanes for Hassan Reddick. You mentioned in the second level. And now you got a guy you can mix and match. I know McMullen likes to use the Khalil Mack and Von Miller kind of comparison. I look at what Micah Parsons did for the Cowboys last year. I think the Eagles saw that and said, hey, why don't we get a piece like that? And then, Bradbury in the secondary just makes that unit a whole lot stronger. So I think, that the Eagles defense down the stretch where they kind of feasted on some poor quarterbacks, I think Eagles fans want to know, was that real? Was that fake? And now with these upgrades, I think, when you look around the league, who's got a dominant defense? I mean, who are we talking about here? The Rams? I mean, how many teams can you count that have a better defense than the Eagles? And that does bode well for Jalen Hurts in the offense because it alleviates some of that pressure. And, I think the Eagles are a sleeping giant here in the NFC because, again, after you get past, I don't think Tampa Bay is what Tampa Bay 2 years ago. And I think Green Bay has gone backwards with losing Devonta Adams. So after the Rams, it's really up for grabs. I look at the Bengals a year ago at this time. Nobody was talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Eagles could be that team in the NFC this year.
And if they can beat the Cowboys, win a division, they'd be in good playoff stead. I do want to give, and we've done this before, I don't know if I've done it with you here on Bird 365, because usually when we throw you in, we go immediately to college football, which I will do before the day is out. I'll have a question or two for you, Ricky, before
cool.
we get out of here today. But I've, and John has, and we've had guests on have said the same exact thing. Howie Roseman's got to get some significant credit for this last year. And I say last year because it goes back into last season. Not just season ends. They got their tails kicked by Tampa in the playoffs, and then Howie Roseman's restructuring of the roster begins. Oh, no. He did work in season last year. When Jordan Mailata started the preseason at camp as dominant as he did, put Andre Dillard in his rearview mirror and grabbed the left tackle starting spot and then was dominant from day one on, everybody knew. And everybody was clamoring for them to get a contract extension done with Jordan Mailata. And now he got it done. When we knew the Eagles were coming to camp with two different tight ends, but they were looking to trade Zach Ertz, and Ertz at the last game of the 2020 season had that emotional moment sitting on the bench after the game, thought that he was going to be dealt during the offseason. Didn't happen until in season. But we knew the Eagles were willing to go there because they believed that Dallas Goedert was going to be a top 10 tight end, maybe even a top 5 tight end. So the extension was coming, but they had to get it done. And Howie Roseman did. But that was obvious. Both Mailata and Goddard were obvious. The less obvious ones were Avonte Maddox, who had a really good year last year as the inside cornerback. And not everybody loved Avonte Maddox. Not everybody thought that Avonte Maddox should be starting, let alone get a contract extension. I was the guy who was on the Avonte bandwagon, but so was Howie Roseman because he got the contract extension done. Give him credit for that. Last year, I said TJ Edwards. I know John's a huge TJ Edwards fan this year. But last year, I noticed how well he was playing. I said, this is right in Howie's wheelhouse. This is one of those guys where you get the contract done ahead of time. And that way you don't have to worry about restricted free agency or what tag you're going to put on him. Get it done now. Do it and bring him in as one of your quote-unquote core guys. And damn if Howie Roseman didn't do just that. He identified guys to extend, and then, by the way, they went out and kicked some tail in the second half of the season last year. Howie didn't get enough credit for that during this offseason as far as I'm concerned, Rick. How about you?
I don't think Howie Roseman ever gets enough credit, right? I mean, he really does a good job, in my opinion. And you see the wheeling and dealing, not only on draft day, building up equity for future drafts, but making smart, sound offseason decisions. We talked about it. He's not going to get them all right. But I think also you got an influx of young NFL general managers that are willing to wheel and deal. So that plays into it as well. And, you know, somebody made a good point. In today's NFL landscape, to have 4 players that you drafted and stay with the team for 10 years. I think Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, in the modern day NFL era, to have those 4 guys stay with your organization. I mean, Howie Roseman's been there since those guys got there. 10 years. That's like unheard of. And, you know, he made his living as a cap specialist working up the ranks in the Eagles organization. So kind of took that Mike Tannenbaum route to NFL general manager. But yeah, I think Howie Roseman is underappreciated, man. I know they went through some power struggles here when Chip was on board, but he kind of rebounded nicely from that. And hey, it's hard to argue with the product he's putting on the field. I mean, we just talked about the defensive additions. I mean, A.J. Brown, you can argue one of the best offensive acquisitions in the league this offseason.
Now, this is going to annoy the snot out of Eagle fans, so I'll apologize in advance. I'll give you my take after you give me yours. Excellent point you just made about putting in a full decade. Just doesn't happen in the NFL anymore, and the Eagles have 4 guys that fit that description going into this season. How many are still going to be on the roster in 2023?
Whew. Well, you know, Cox is probably gone because, you know, Hargrave has got to get a contract, and you know, they got Milton Williams and Jordan Davis. So I don't think Fletcher Cox is on the roster. BG, I mean, I meant to ask Johnny Mack because Brandon Graham, I heard, is drinking from the fountain of youth here. He's been looking really good in training camp. So I think there's a possibility he comes back. Lane Johnson, I mean, and Kelsey, I made the mistake saying Kelsey won't be back next year, and you guys got on me for that. So it sounds like Kelsey might be back. Lane Johnson, I think this is his final season. So I'll say 50%, 2 out of 4.
Really? Wow. You and I do see it differently, and neither one of us know, and the Eagles don't know. Nobody knows. We got to get through the entire season, and then the Eagles and the individual players will make that decision. Ric Serritella, Jody McDonald, John McMullen will have nothing to do with it other than being outside and watching and registering an opinion. I think it could be one. And the one guy that I think is going to be back is the guy that you said you think is done. I think Lane's still got football left in him. I think Fletcher will be a cap casualty guy because they've got Jordan Davis. I think they like Milt Williams a lot. It'll either be Fletcher or Hargrave that comes back. And there's a possibility that both could walk away. But chances are they're going to keep one. And I'm with you. I think it would more so be Hargrave because he's the younger of the two. So I think Fletcher, if he wants to continue to play, might have to do so elsewhere. Brandon Graham will all come down to how he plays this year. If he's, and he's looked great in camp from everything that we've heard, if he is still a contributing guy and making plays and still wants to play, I think he'll be back. I think he'll come back and give the Eagles a very reasonable. I doubt that he's going to go chase money elsewhere. So it'll all come down to, can Howie Roseman and he come up with a number that the Eagles can live with and he can live with playing? I think it's going to be difficult to do. Brandon did say this offseason he doesn't have any desire to go play anywhere else, but he didn't say, I won't play anywhere else. So I bet you Brandon Graham is back in the league, but with another team, much like Fletcher. And yeah, this is fine. I'll be wrong again. I'm with you, Ricky. I've said like 3 times now, last 3 years, this could be Kelsey's last year. This could be Kelsey's last year.
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey's got the kids. He's probably going to walk away after this year. I've been wrong every single time, just like I've said Tom Brady is going to get old every year for the last 10 years. Kelsey, I've only been wrong for 3. Brady, I've been wrong for 10. Actually, the last couple of years, I stopped. I go, I'm tired of being wrong. Tom Brady's going to be great till he dies. He's going to play till he dies. I don't want to get it wrong again. But I'll roll the dice and be wrong about Kelsey again. I think he will walk away and retire as an all-time great Eagle, and then we'll wait for his day to be inducted in Canton into the Hall of Fame, which will be great. He'll probably dress up as a mummer. I think the guy that is most likely to come back, and I will go on record and say that he will be back, is Lane Johnson. But he's the only one, if you put a percentage on it, percentage on Fletcher coming back to me, less than 25. Percentage on Brandon Graham coming back, probably about 49. You got to go above or below 50. So I'm saying it's a toss-up, damn close to a toss-up. I'll go 49% he comes back. Kelsey coming back, it's either 0 or 100. There's no in between. Either he's going to decide to play, which means he's going to be back. He's going to be their starting center, or 0 because he retired. You can't play if you're retired. So he's a weird one. But I'd say Lane Johnson's about 85% that he's back as the Eagles starting right tackle. And you think he could be elsewhere? You think Lane is contemplating retirement?
Well, I mean, I think we'll see how he gets through the season with the durability issues. But, you know, he's been keeping in pretty good shape, I know, in the garage. So, hey, you make a compelling case. No arguments here. I think where it gets even more interesting, and now we're really rubbing the crystal balls, but when you were out on Friday last week, and shout out to Tone, our producer behind the scenes, he filled in the hot seat there, but he brought up a good point. If Jalen Hurts does get this big contract extension, well, oh, by the way, Devonta Smith is going to be up for a contract extension as well, and you have A.J. Brown on the books. I mean, can you keep Brown and Smith and Hurts? I know the cap goes up, but that's going to be a hard situation to navigate for Howie.
Right. But I think that if they were to move away from Lane Johnson, that's going to be difficult if he wants to continue to play. That's a big dead cap hit. They're not going to have the flexibility to do the dead cap hit stuff that they've done in the past. That's one of the reasons why I think Lane's coming back. He can come back because he's still all pro level at the right tackle, and I don't think he's ready to walk away just yet. He's Ric Serritella. I'm Jody McDonald. We'll get a quickie timeout in here. As I mentioned, Eric Edholm of NFL.com, formerly of Yahoo. He's going to hop on with us. We'll talk all things NFL, including birds, with Eric. Keep it right here on Birds 365.